Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of My Favorite Games. This time I'm going to be playing Wolfenstein 3D on the Atari Jaguar. Now this game is near and dear to my heart, very much so. I had it when I was a kid, back in 1994 when the system was new and relevant and had games coming out for it. Wolfenstein was one that I got with the system. And, it was also the first-person shooter that I ever got to play. So that was pretty mind-blowing at the time. And also, this game is kind of responsible for getting me interested in learning about World War II history and who the Nazis were and what my country's role was in the war, which is the United States. If you're not super familiar with my channel, there's not a lot of games that I can say. Piqued my interest and made me want to go learn things. But Wolfenstein's one of them, I guess. So also, a few things about this. I don't generally try to be like a big historian video maker here where I educate you on a game's origins and history and all that stuff. But a couple of things I wanted to point out because I knew these things at the time that I had the game, and it also made me I guess proud more or less to own this version of the game. See, the Atari Jaguar version is it's all uncensored, and it was actually done by id Software. So other versions were based off of this version, right? So like the 3DO version, for example, I think one of the later, maybe. Again, not a historian here, but I think it might have been like the Mac version perhaps was based off of the Jaguar version. Anyway, I just know that this was the one that they took coding and used it to make other versions. So it looked better than the PC version at the time also. So that was really cool, just because back then you didn't have a PC in every household, right? I got to use a PC when I would go to school. Definitely didn't have one in our home for some time after this game came out. I don't think I even had internet access until about 1996. So, different time, man. We did not have smartphones and stuff. You didn't just have the internet and all that stuff at your fingertips. But anyway, I knew that this version looked better than the original PC version, and boy was that great to lord over the other kids at school who actually had the PC version at home. It was really cool to be able to say that your console outperformed their PC or had a better version of like one of the biggest, most relevant games at the time. Also, this was totally uncensored, as I mentioned, unlike the Super Nintendo version. So other kids had this on the SNES, and I don't know, you were playing the adult version. You were playing the cool, underground shit if you were playing the Jaguar version, right? Because you had blood, you had all the Nazi stuff, or the 3DO version, honestly, that had all that stuff too. But it came out quite a bit after the Jaguar version did. I want to say it was like a full year maybe behind. Well, I don't know exactly when it came out for 3DO, but I know that I had moved on to the PlayStation and was kind of over Wolfenstein at that time, and over everything the 3DO had to offer, really. The PlayStation blew my freaking mind. But anyway, the Super Nintendo version didn't have blood. It didn't have dogs for some reason. They changed the dogs to something else. I want to say they were rats or something like that, like giant rats maybe. And all of the references to Nazi Germany were removed. So there were no swastikas. Like this picture of Adolf Hitler had been modified, so there's no armband, no mustache. I think the hairstyle had been changed also. They just scrubbed all of the kind of personality from the game, right? Like it lost its teeth when you take out the blood and the references to Nazi Germany and stuff. Honestly, as a kid, half the fun of this game was the satisfaction of feeling like you were on this righteous mission, wiping out Nazis who were these, terrible people who had committed just these total horrors. and you know, my young 14-year-old mind was like, yeah, you know, it's time to set things right. Let's go, let's go blast some Nazis. It's just, you know, it's ridiculous. Just playing a video game or whatever, but you know, that's like what it's like being a kid, man. Like you go on adventures in your mind, right? And Wolfenstein kind of took me to a new place where, you know, like the real world met video games, and that was something new. That was unlike anything I'd ever played before. But anyway, some more, I guess, background on some of my fond memories playing this game. It was actually my dad who knew about this game and kind of told me about it. Again, didn't have internet at the time, and it just wasn't like it is now. You couldn't just go like look up YouTube videos of Wolfenstein or something like that, right? That stuff just didn't exist. If you wanted to see what a game looked like, you had to either, you know, hope your local rental store had it so you could try it that way, or maybe you'd see pictures in a magazine like EGM or something, and then you just kind of use your imagination as to what the game was going to look like in motion. But my dad actually had a PC that he shared with his coworkers at his job, and somebody brought in Wolfenstein to the office, and I guess it became a thing where all the people in the office were taking turns on lunch breaks to try and progress the game and get to you know, get to the next level and get to the next boss and that kind of thing, and it was like a group effort, right? And my dad had told me that that was a lot of fun doing that with his coworkers and stuff, and oh, you know, that game's coming out on the Jaguar. Well, we're gonna pick up a Jaguar, so when we do, let's make sure we get Wolfenstein, because that game's great. So yeah, I mean, that was really cool. One, to just kind of hear the stories of my dad and his coworkers and stuff, like, you know, him telling these stories about what the game was like and like the things that they encountered in it and stuff, and you know, not having the game yet, just kind of using my imagination, like, whoa, mutant Nazis, zombies and stuff, you know. Just, it sounded crazy, and I was all about it. So but also, you know, it was cool just because my dad was able to acknowledge that this version looked better than the one that he played at work, and you know, he remembered some of the map stuff, some of the map layouts rather, and he knew strategies for beating the bosses and things like that. I mean, you have to keep in mind, as I guess kind of simple as this game seems by today's standards, at the time, it just, I don't know, man, like, I was 14, you gotta figure out games as you play them, and not everything is gonna be super readily apparent to you as you're going along, right? So like little things like shooting enemies in a doorway so that the door stays open, you know, like those were tricks that my dad taught me, so that you could kind of have like a longer lane to the boss on those levels, and you know, line them up just right with open doorways, so he wouldn't really shoot at you because he'd be too far away, but you could still be sinking bullets into him while he was trying to get closer to you. So things like that, you know. And honestly, and speaking of, I'm actually on a boss level right now. I know, yeah, that's the door with the boss. I know I don't want to go in there yet, because there's this. Get all loaded up with ammo. Alright, let's go take him down. I'll finish my thought in a moment. Let's just enjoy the boss fight here. Oh crap, oh crap. Run, run, run. There we go. I was saying oh crap because I couldn't find this door to the room with all the health. Yes. I remember encountering that boss for the first time when I was a kid, and this was when my dad decided to help me out with the boss fights, because one, seeing a guy that big and him having like such a powerful weapon, and I think the combination of the music at the time, right? Like, it just seemed like it was like overstimulation or something, you know. It kind of freaked me out. I remember thinking that the boss was a little scary even. This was pretty immersive for the time, really. I mean, we didn't have VR like you have now, right? VR was a thing, but it was really half-assed and bad, honestly. It was just bad. I played it once at a it's like a bowling alley type place with a huge arcade, and they had spent the money to get a VR station and have somebody man it, and you could pay like, I want to say it was like $5, which was a lot at the time, to play the game for like 10 minutes or something like that. I don't remember the game or anything what it was called. I think it might have been Dactyl Nightmare, because that seems to be the one that fits the description of what I'm talking about, where it was like making the rounds at the time and it was generally unimpressive. But I just remember thinking that, like, oh wow, VR is nothing like what movies have led me to believe. You know, like it wasn't quite up to like Lawnmower Man status yet or anything like that. We didn't have movies like The Matrix or things like that hadn't come out yet, right? And I don't know. All of that seemed like this crazy new frontier, VR, I mean. And I just remember being super disappointed. But playing this at home, I mean, I know it looks cartoony and everything, but this was some really immersive stuff back at in the time. Like it was pretty remarkable, man. Like I had never, you know, you have to also keep in mind that this perspective, this first-person view, this was a pretty new thing. There weren't that many games with this view, and the ones that had it, Doom, Wolfenstein, Alien vs. Predator, they were a big deal, and everybody knew about them because they were kind of the first thing, and they were, you know, pretty, I guess, universally recognized as being great games and also super immersive. So, but anyway, I've kind of gotten myself off track. I lost my train of thought. I was going to talk about something else earlier, and now I can't remember. Oh, I think I was talking about my dad helping me out with boss fights and stuff, and teaching me the ropes of the game. That was something that that I'll always remember Wolfenstein for, was just the connection with my dad while we were playing this game together, and you know, passing some of the levels and bosses and stuff, coming up with different strategies. There's one or two times I think I remember specifically having him beat the giant zombie boss for me, because I don't know, I was struggling with it, and he came in and remembered how to set it up, and I just remember being like, wow, this is really cool that I have a dad who is interested in playing these games with me. You know, that's not something that any of my friends growing up had. None of them, I should say, had a dad that really took much of an interest in video games. And my dad was not a super huge gamer or anything, but he had an appreciation for like cutting edge technology. And so knowing that we had you know, the latest and greatest consoles and stuff like that, like, I think that was satisfying to him. He liked seeing how games were advancing and getting neater looking. I remember one time in particular, he was impressed with our old NES. He had seen me play the TMNT arcade game, the Ninja Turtle arcade game, countless times. And he thought Battletoads at first just looked like that, but with frogs. And I remember him coming in and seeing the level where you're on the speeder bikes, and thinking like, oh wow, this does look really good, you know, like that they're figuring out how to do neater things with this Nintendo. And I think that was maybe when it got started. Like we had an Atari in the house before that, and maybe I'm just, you know, I was too young to remember him really appreciating that, but it seemed to me like him acknowledging that Nintendo games were getting more impressive as time went on, and developers were figuring out tricks and that kind of thing. It seemed like that was the start of when I remember him kind of like thinking, oh, we've got we've got the latest and greatest. We've got like the newest, the newest showpiece game or whatever. And it continued from there. We got the Super Nintendo and then dropped that because they censored Mortal Kombat, much like they censored the Wolfenstein game, though Mortal Kombat came first. And we got the Genesis and then the Sega CD, and then we were looking at getting the 32X, and we decided instead to get the Atari Jaguar just because it had these games. It had Wolfenstein and Alien vs. Predator, and I was a huge fan of the Predator movies as a kid. Big, giant Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. I grew up on that guy's movies. He's like a childhood hero of mine. So, anything Predator related was amazing to me, right? Like we had the arcade game at the local arcade that Capcom made. It was like a beat 'em up, and that was just brilliant. I love that game to this day. But the first-person shooter on Atari Jaguar was particularly mind-blowing, just because crap, getting lit up. The Jaguar game was particularly amazing at the time, just because, oh wow, you get to play as human, predator, or alien, and having that and the best looking version of Wolfenstein at the time, and a pretty good version of Doom, all of that was great reason for us to jump on the Jaguar bandwagon. So ultimately, the Jaguar didn't pan out for us. I think it kind of stalled out, and obviously developers were jumping ship to things like the Saturn or the PlayStation. And when we saw what those games looked like, wow, it was over for the Jaguar. We we were done. We traded it in, got the PlayStation on launch day. But for years after that, like I always felt like people didn't give the Jaguar its due credit, because it was a great system with a lot of great games on it. And, this one in particular, I knew that guy was going to be back behind that door. I knew it. This one in particular was a favorite for me, so. Alright, so I don't know if I'm closing in on the boss here or not. I want to play to the next boss fight. And I'll probably shut this down after I beat the second boss. I should play a little bit into the zombie levels, just so you can kind of see what those look like if you're not already familiar and you're just kind of curious since you heard me mention it earlier. Let's test out this rocket launcher. I picked it up and didn't even acknowledge it at the time. This one's cool just because a single rocket can go through multiple enemies. I have the flamethrower here, which has pretty incredible range for a flamethrower. It'll go as far, it'll go until it hits a wall, just like any other projectile in the game. One other thing about this version of the game too that I always loved is the soundtrack. I always preferred this version of the soundtrack to all others. The Super Nintendo version, I think, has the same songs or the same tracks, but I don't know, they must have had to compress the audio a whole lot more, because I think it just sounds like kind of muffled hell when compared to this version. The 3DO version, I think, has pretty good music, but I don't think it looks as good as this version. It's got the bar on the bottom of the screen, which I way prefer the transparent thing that this version has going on, where they've just got the ammo count and the health with the face down there and no bar taking up a portion of the screen. Makes things seem kind of larger than life. It seems a little bigger in this version, I think. But yeah, the 3DO version had good music, I'll give it that. I also think the weapons sounded a little better in the 3DO version as well. But it's all personal preference stuff. You know, any version you could get that wasn't the Super Nintendo version was a good version to play, in my opinion. But I particularly love this one, of course, because one, it was the one that I had, and two, well, there is no two. It was just the one that I had. It's a little hard playing this with the Jaguar controller at times. I like to think I'm doing a pretty good job getting around with it here. Gotta check the map. I've gotten a little lost. Okay, that's a locked door there. Okay, I think I see the other door I should go through. Alright. So anyway, one more quick memory here from my time with this game. I actually finished it on New Year's Eve, 1994, so just as the clock turned to 95, I was making my way through the end of this game. And I remember staying up until like 2 or 2:30 in the morning and getting all the way to the last boss, getting all the way to Hitler, taking him down. My dad came into the room and watched me do it. Thought it was really cool to see me get there after having been, you know, playing for several hours and making it. Which is funny because like it's not that long of a game, I guess, and you know, there's certainly like speed run routes and things like that, but I don't know, man. I wasn't playing it for time. I was taking everything slow and really carefully. You know, I'm probably blasting through it now. I do remember thinking some of those par times that you get on the clear screens at the end of every level, some of those just seemed like crazy to me. It's just like, wow, you got to just like run and not pick up anything. And I was creeping around corners really slowly and, you know, playing it almost like a sim, you know. But anyway, I was pretty happy to be able to tell kids at school that I had stayed up until like, you know, 2 in the morning playing this game for New Year's. At 14, you know, I don't think I stayed up till 2 in the morning very often at all. Like, if ever, man. Like, if I would have, it would have been kind of sneaking it, you know, without my dad knowing about it. Oh, crap. I hope I don't die here. There we go. Okay. I gotta go get some health, man. This is nuts. I'm hurting. Watch there not be any around here, too. Also, if you're wondering why I am up against these walls here, the way you'd find secret rooms in this game and in some other games of the time is just literally pressing yourself up against the wall and hitting the door open button until you just accidentally trigger a wall that moves. This middle area? Nah. Well, okay, let's try this. I also don't remember where the hidden rooms are either, so it's not going to make for super compelling viewing here, so I will knock this off pretty shortly. But man, I didn't want to go into the next level with just like 27 health. I was getting too fast and loose with my gameplay here. Alright, I'm about ready to give up. I think I only really remember the secrets for the first like few levels, and then after that, just memory shot. I haven't been able to retain any of it, I guess. I don't know. I'll check in here one more time. Forget what's in here. Good. Nope. Nope. Better just pray I don't get shot. There we go. There's my door. Yeah, so if I do get shot, you have to start the level over again with just your pistol, unless you managed to save your game before you went down. But there's usually always some weapons hidden in the level too. You just might lose stuff like there might not be a rocket launcher or a flamethrower or whatever immediately handy. Oh, well, that's helpful. Health kit right there. That bought me a little bit of time. This totally seems like boss music. If there's another big door with 2 doors on the other side. Yeah, okay. This is going to be a boss level, I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, they don't just give you rocket launchers when you're not fighting a boss. Okay. So, let's, Thought I'd hear the boss there. Ah, trying to line up with the door. There we go. Ah, I screwed it up. I hit the wall. Wall behind me. There we go. Boy, they are taking their sweet time making their way to this door. I was just nervous there was another guy around the corner, and there he was. See? The game's still got it. Caught me off guard a little bit. Made me jump. Trying to figure out where to go next. Must be down this way. Oh yeah, okay. For sure. Oh, there he is. Got him. Awesome. Alright. I didn't even get to raid the supply rooms here before I did it. Looks like I'm all full on ammo. The other door's got to be health, right? That's the one for the key he dropped. Yeah, here we go. Perfect. Alright, so second boss down. Let's go ahead and move on. Close this floor out. Didn't find any secrets that time. Oh yeah, here we go. This is the zombie level. The madman Dr. Shabs has evidently using a so-called animation serum return dead Nazi soldiers to life. Okay, so we gotta put an end to that. It's funny what's frightening to you when you're a kid and you look back on it as an adult. Because I remember these guys being scary. That's funny. They're so cartoony and ridiculous looking, but at the time, again, I don't think I'd really seen too many games with graphics like this and a theme like this. Yeah, 5 health. I'm about to die here. But like the rooms have just random puddles, piles of bones, and things like that. Like you get the message. Oh, okay. This guy's just sitting in here eating people, and they're zombies. That's scary, you know. Plus, there hadn't been like a million zombie movies and huge hit TV show and stuff to kind of, I guess, make zombies a more regular thing. wonder if I just do some exploring without... Oh shit, I'm not gonna make it. Ah, got me. I was gonna try to make it to the the zombie boss, but well, I'm sure not gonna be doing that with just a pistol. I'm sure there's probably a chain gun or something around here somewhere on the level, but I don't think I'm gonna go find it. I think I'm gonna call that a video for now. Thank you for hanging out with me and watching me play Wolfenstein 3D on the Atari Jaguar. Again, totally love this game. A lot of fond memories of playing it. If you are interested in owning a Jaguar and you're kind of looking at what games to buy, this is certainly one that should go on your list, I think. It is, like I said before, a great version. Looks better than the original PC version. It's totally uncensored. And I don't think it's super hard to come by, at least not right now, it isn't. I mean, of course, you have to kind of use eBay or collector's markets for anything on the Jaguar nowadays, just because it was just, I guess, a more rare console in its day. But in terms of rarity as a Jaguar game within that library, I don't think Wolfenstein was super rare. So you should usually be able to find somebody selling it somewhere. And I think it's one to own for sure. If you're going to collect for this system, you want to play some old Jaguar stuff, this is one to get. And also, real quick, it's worth noting, I think I talked about this already, so forgive me if I'm kind of repeating myself. I'm just trying to make sure I hit all my bullet points here before I wrap the video. This version and the Super Nintendo version share the same soundtrack. It's actually not the original PC soundtrack. It's different from that version. And if you don't have the old original PC version, you can still check my math on that by downloading it for Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3. That old PC version is the one that's downloadable for those systems. I think it actually might even be a backward compatible game for Xbox One as well. So look into it and you'll kind of see the difference. You know, those versions don't look this nice and the soundtrack is different. I don't think it's a bad soundtrack in those versions, but again, totally personal preference really. But I just think this one kind of has a little more going for it. But anyway, yeah, so thanks again for hanging out, and we'll catch you next time.